No, that's a cool look. I like that look. Not my hair. The lighting. Lighting's kind of. I like that's Nito Completo. Yeah, I gotta clean up this beard though. Highlights all the stuff. I need to get this shaved. Though I need to shower real bad. Hi, welcome to the Whitey White Guy Show. I'm Whitey, and today I'm going to talk to you about one of my favorite things in the universe. That is season one of the TV show Tour of Duty. This came out, and I want to say 87, 88, and ran until 90. So it'd be 88, 89, 90. They got canceled 90 for Parker Lewis Can't Lose, which ran for like 5 minutes and was, crap. Thanks a bunch, Corbin Nemec. So, this show, as you can tell, it's about the war in Vietnam. It starts in the summer of 1966, and it's got a diverse cast, as you can tell. You got guys who are black, white, Hispanic, dudes Japanese over here. And then you got this guy here's a bit of a country boy. This guy's from the city. He's from Detroit. He's from Boise, Idaho. He's from California. He's the captain. I don't know where he came from. LT's supposed to be half Jewish. Tony's from Missoula, Montana, I believe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got that right. So it's a diverse cast, and they have to come together and fight the war in Vietnam. But what's really cool about this show is that it doesn't have a particular vantage point exactly. It's episodic, and you follow different characters are the lead in a given episode, and you see things from their vantage point. So it's not told from a northern vantage point or a southern vantage point or a liberal vantage point or a conservative vantage point. It's told from all kinds of vantage points, and that goes for the Vietnamese as well. In the third season, it's not in this one, but for example, a reporter played by Kim Delaney, and that's what brought this mind. I'll get this in a second. Goes into the tunnel complex to interview the North Vietnamese army, and you see things from their vantage point. And then in another episode, you see things from the vantage point of the Viet Minh, aka Viet Cong. And then there's a number of different episodes, and then they deal with things like racism and a little bit. There's one character in season two who's gay and has to do with being in the military and being gay. So it's fairly liberal in that this isn't John Wayne rah rah rah. Although you might have some characters who are John Wayne rah rah rah. Again, it's not that vantage point. It's and like I said, it's from the vantage point of the. It's sometimes you get some politicians in there, some reporters, medical staff, what they got to go through. So it's like here's all it's about the war in Vietnam, not specifically this again vantage point, this individual group of individuals. These are the grunts. These guys are, I believe, like 11th Bravo. They go out and they, dig foxholes and set up ambushes and screens and patrols. And here's the first season is primarily the day to day of what they got to go through. So there's a lot of them patrolling through the jungle. This was shot in parts of backlots in California and in Hawaii. So some of it, it's this had a big budget, but it had a big budget for television in the 80s when most TV shows were one camera or like a three camera setup on a proscenium stage, and the characters would walk into frame, and the sofa in the living room in their home is like the center of the stage, and characters walk in and find their marks. These guys are flying around in helicopters and blowing shit up. They're flying around in these M1H1 Hueys. The very first scene, they're taking mortar rounds at a fire base, and they're exchanging fire with the enemy. Like one of the first things he sees a dude who has got his throat cut. Now, what did they do? They took a bunch of red painty looking stuff and put it on his throat. And when he pulled his head back, he's like, "Blah!" And he's got this. You didn't see like torn open flesh because it was the 80s. You couldn't do that. Even if you could do it from a vantage point of like prosthetics and effects, you couldn't show that on television. However, for the 80s, that was like, holy shit, that dude got his throat cut. You didn't see that kind of thing on a television show in the 80s. So there's pros and cons. You watch it now, and does feel dated for sure. Um, there's too many lines where like the LT's like, "Oh gosh darn," and it's like the way no Nam vet ever said. It's like compare this to Platoon or Predator, where it's fuck with every word. It's like fucking, fucking, fuck, and then here they're like, golly gee, and it's just like, oh, nails on me, chalkboard there. So at the same time, compare this to everything else that was happening in the 80s and before that. This is holy shit, realistic. They're covered in grime and slop and sweat and blood and tears. You can't show from deduction in the 80s. Unlike the 90s where you had like just packets that would explode and get shot with blood everywhere. Couldn't do that on TV. So, somebody would get shot, and once you had like the bandages on, man, I'm getting attacked. NVA. Um, the blood effects and everything looked really solid. That looked believable, but you just couldn't show blood splatter or guts hanging out. And so for the 1980s, this was kick serious ass. This and you heard the N word on here in the pilot episode. One of the first pieces of dialogue is the N word. You're like, whoa, 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 whoa. But I mean, he dealt with race. I believe it's season two that do like the death of Dr. Martin Luther King, and how that resonated to the soldiers in Vietnam. Um, principal characters get killed off. And again, it's just it's for 1980s. This was like Gloria Hallelujah. This is like Hemingway, very realistic. Again, too many gosh darns and gee whizzes. You couldn't go full throttle Vietnam War, but they did a pretty good job considering. Now, one of the problems I have with the show, and it's the nature of being episodic. You really don't establish, like these guys are in a platoon. You really don't establish squads or teams, um, and so whoever's like the sergeant, played by Terry Knox, is a pretty badass guy right here. He's hysterical at times. He's like that. He's like a drill sergeant. He's got a clever quip for everything, but he's dead serious when he needs to get the job done. Um, what was I saying? Oh, geez. Okay, so he's a sergeant. He's a platoon sergeant. But then he'll go out with a squad like he's a squad sergeant. You know what I'm saying? So in season, I think it's in this one. I think it's this season one or season three, maybe even season two. I can't remember. He gets promoted to first sergeant. I believe it is. It has to be right. So he's like a staff sergeant. I don't know, but he's generic sergeant for whatever the episode requires him to be doing. Whatever his function is, that's what he's doing. There's always a lieutenant and then a captain, but there isn't a first lieutenant and the other, platoon officers. So you have your principal characters, which is all these guys, and then in an episode you've got another lieutenant from another platoon, and then never see that person again. Why? Because actors are signed on to contracts, and you only have so much budget, so you can't pay a bunch of actors scale and have 40 actors. So every time first platoon officer is this guy, second team platoon officer is this guy, this is their platoon sergeant. Instead, every week it's just faces coming around. You have these guys, and their first platoon Bravo, and one week their third squad, the next week their second squad, the next week, the other guy's platoon sergeant is this guy, and then you never see him again. It's episodic. And it's the whole red shirt phenomenon. A guy said, you see a new actor who's got a piece of dialogue right off the bat, that guy's not going to be around for very long, and usually you're right. So there's teleplay, telestructure. The episodes are structured in a certain way. So when you introduce this character, and he's not one of these guys, and suddenly he's got a piece of dialogue, his time on this planet be short, man. That character's not going to be along for a long time. And so it's got those limitations. It's got budgetary limitations. But they had, I believe it was 3 or 4 of these, and then the Department of Defense gave them 3 more for certain scenes. Whereas again, like the sky would be filled with these things. There's 3 of them. Why you don't have millions and millions and millions of dollars to just throw at a scene? And this season's pretty solid. Yeah, you can pick apart some flaws, but it's pretty solid. And the second season, they started recycling scenes. So there's one scene where Ruiz, who fires who's got the M60, he pops up and starts spraying in a way that you wouldn't do. A, and B, they use that like 3 or 4 times throughout the series. So it's like they had this cool shot, so they use it in episode after episode to cut down on budgetary costs. And then in the second season, a bunch of some producers quit. Like second season got out of control, I'll get into that into season 2. But season 1 was solid. It was tight. It's a bunch of grunts wandering around Vietnam doing their job. This is going on patrols, going on ambushes, defending the fire base. You got POWs, you got friendly fire situations, that kind of stuff. So it's within the episodic nature of television and budgetary constraints and what you could and couldn't show in the 80s on television, this is really good. So if you're looking for Platoon, where dudes are schwacking out dudes and screaming and all that, cursing all the time, you can't do that on television. Hence the phrase, you can't do that on television. You got standards and practices. So this is pretty good, though. It's not 100% on the nose, but if you know nothing about the war in Vietnam, and you want a 101 level basics of the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, as opposed to the VC, the Viet Cong, and what the difference is there, or you want to know the difference between Army and Marines, North Vietnam versus South Vietnam, some of the politics involved, this is an excellent show for you. So this isn't your 300 and 400 level spot on the nose, but again, it's a good 101. It's a good, here are the basics of what was happening during the war in Vietnam, spelled out in a way that you get a sense of what's going on. And really well done. The acting is really good from these guys. Once in a while, you get a character who's just someone who's there for that episode is a little over top, but these guys do a really good job. Except for he's got a couple nails on the chalkboard. One thing too, I'm just gonna keep going for a little bit here because I'm almost done. If you watch this once, you won't notice this. But you do multiple viewings of all 3 seasons, and it's the same 5 or 6 locations over again. There's a little windy creek. You're going to see that about 413 times. Then you're going to see it in the TV show China Beach, and then you're going to see it in a bunch of other TV shows and movies. It's Hollywood. It's a bunch of, the studios own this piece of property, and so they shoot a bunch of scenes on the same property. So it's like, oh my God, it's that little creek again. Oh my God, it's that little lagoon again. And then they have this is the 1980s, so there weren't the population in the United States was 85, 88% white people and a smattering of everybody else, whatever it was. There weren't a whole lot of East Asians to be cast in a TV show about Vietnam. So they do recast some of the same actors. Like one guy's just in the background in one scene, he's got 2 pieces of light dialogue, and then he's more the central focus in another episode. And it's like you don't notice it the first time through, but you notice it on multiple viewings. And then some of the extras and stuff, it's like that's the same guy with the baggy eyes. All 3, they've killed him like 18 times. So, um, so if you can suspend some disbelief and set aside the limitations of 80s television, this was thoroughly badass by 80s television standards. And I recommend this to anybody over the age of, say, 8 or 10 or something. Go check out Tour of Duty. Important thing to understand. Very important thing to understand. when the show aired, the studio bought rights to some awesome music. Jimi Hendrix, CCR. There's a somebody Wolf. There's a bunch of really great music that is tuned. It's like edited in exactly the music cues up at exactly this moment, and you're like, yeah, all along the watchtower. Ow! In the middle of a fight sequence, you're jamming out to some Hendrix. The NVA's coming up on the squad. They're laying down fire. LT's on the radio with the helicopter pilot. Get your ass down here! I'm gonna shoot you inside myself. And and it's like, yeah. And while you're jamming out to Jimi Hendrix, it's awesome. On this DVD set, it's just whatever generic music they could afford. Or not even afford. It was the stuff that was like you could get off a editing software, and they put it in there, and so it's the same handful of things. It's clearly somebody got paid $50 to find free music and put it in there, and it doesn't have the same impact. So you can find, I believe nowadays, this isn't it, but you can find the original episodes with the original music, and it makes a difference. It makes a huge emotional difference in what the character's going through. Still, it's good. It's still good, and even some of the music they got on here, which isn't that great, still fits the moment and is solid enough. But again, anyone viewing, it's not going to hop out at you. If you when you watch all three seasons, if you were to binge it, you're going to hear the same tunes over and over again and be like, oh my god, this again. So that's in there. But Tour Duty, if you're hearing about it for the first time, go check it out. You can pirate it online, or preferably go buy the DVD and make these actors some money. I think. I hope they make some money with your purchase. I don't know if you get this off Amazon. It makes a difference to these guys. But these are some great actors. Check out this show. You're really going to enjoy it. This is the Whitey White Guy Show. Like, subscribe, all that stuff. And I will do, this was like a generic overview. I'm going to go through and do individual episodes of all three seasons. You can't see it down there in the lights in the way, but I got the other two seasons sitting right over there. So I'll be doing a season overview of what was going on in the show, who the characters are, and then I'll go episode by episode. Why? Because I love these guys. Mwah! It's my favorite thing in the world. Everything else, everything's this show. I was like five, 6, and 7. And then when I was 8, I sat down to watch my show and realized it was canceled. It was supposed to say, fucking Parker, fucking Lewis, Corbin Nemec's ass. Never forgave him. But the best thing that ever happened to television was the first thing in my life. And everything has been just dirty, rotten, unwashed asshole ever since. After this was like Full House. So, I'm more into like Hemingway. Give me Hamburger Hill. Give me Platoon Leader. Give me Platoon. We Were Soldiers. Private Ryan, I'll take it. Not Full House and Barney the fucking dinosaur. So anyway, check out Tour Duty. I love it to tears. I hope you do too. And I'll see you guys in the next episode. Cheers.